Hi guys! We're traveling from New York City to Beijing and back again in this week's book, Sloshed. Here's an excerpt from Chapter 1. Bitter, tangy, sweet. The liquid rushed over Fu's tongue in a swirl of flavors. He never understood the choosiness of humans who often had a preference for a single type of drink. He enjoyed every drop of alcohol in its many forms. It was impossible to play favorites. You good? He looked up at the voice. Behind the scarred wooden bar was the young woman who worked here almost every night. She had hair as red as good luck, and eyes like the shallow waters of the ocean, a swirling mixture of deep greens and blues, illuminated from the sun of her soul. She often tried to speak with him about small topics such as the weather, life, and amusements, but he wasn't interested in conversation. There was no point in it. Unlike most people, she didn't seem to be deterred by his continual silence. If he pretended he didn't know much English, most people left him alone. New York was a polyglot place, but not enough of one that most people tried too hard to communicate with him if they weren't native speakers of Mandarin or Cantonese. But not her. She defied the odds and kept on trying. He didn't know why. He slipped out another $20 bill from his pocket and put it onto the bar top, carefully avoiding sticky marks of questionable origins. Lemon drop, he pulled from the recesses of his memory. Over 3 months since he had had one of those. She sighed and went off to make his drink. Sometimes he had to tell the woman behind the bar what went into each drink and how much of each liquid, and there were times when they didn't have the ingredients he requested. He would put down more money on the bar until they found the ingredients the next time. Money wasn't the issue, not for him. Here, she said, plopping the drink down on a new coaster in front of him and whisking away his previous empty glass. He took a mouthful of the lemon drink and held it in his mouth, savoring the sweet burn. It was delightful, and he could feel every molecule of liquid as if it were a part of him. The power made his jaw ache because he remembered the time before, when he had been able to feel the web of connection around him like a spider, and he had the ability to spin new webs of control into any shape he desired. Those days had faded, and now he barely held it together enough to keep himself the shape of a man. There would come a day soon when even that was beyond him, and he'd fade away like so many others he'd witnessed during his lifetime. Not long now. But until it happened to him, he would come here for the many hours the bar was open and pay for his drinks and remember what he'd lost. The woman went to help several other customers, but then she returned to him. You retired? She asked, but didn't wait for an answer. Not that he would give one. He wasn't sure why she kept trying. What did you used to do? He shrugged, took a sip of his drink, but she didn't seem to mind his non-answer. I'm an actress, she told him. He could see her cheeks darken. Well, aspiring. That's probably pretty obvious for me working here. She smiled, her teeth a flash of white in the gloomy atmosphere of the darkened bar. But I've been on a couple episodes of Law and Order, and there's that new casting call. I think I did pretty well. A customer waved at her and she disappeared for a while. When she came back, his cup was empty. You good? She asked again, as if he ever left before closing time, which was still 3 hours away. He put down another 20. Gibson, he said. Off she went to make his drink. He watched the clock above the old-fashioned push-button register and tried to avoid looking into the mirrors on the walls. They were lined up behind the bottles on the shelves of the bar. If he looked too closely, he'd see his own face, and that was something he tried to avoid at all costs. Wrinkles, salt and pepper hair that used to be long and luxuriously blue-black. He had been celebrated once as one of the handsomest Yan Lei Long, dragon men, in the Chinese Empire, but those days were long gone. Back when his kind had been so numerous you couldn't throw a stone without hitting a dragon, although most people were smart enough not to throw stones at dragons, friendly or not. The woman returned. Here you go, she said, putting down the martini glass in front of him. His nose twitched at the strong odor of gin and the tangy smell of the pickled onions. She whisked away his last glass, and he took a sip. Delicious. He knew it wasn't just the alcohol. This woman, although persistent in annoying ways to try to get him to talk, also managed to mix together the most delightful combinations of liquors. The other bartenders were not so skilled. Sometimes they would give him a drink that was sour, but not in a good way. He preferred her to make his drinks, although he wished she would stop talking. "You have a varied palate," she said now. She was drying glasses that she'd washed in the sink and restacking them on the shelves. Mostly, people drank beer here. There was a perpetual yeasty odor that acted as a backdrop to the atmosphere of the bar. He didn't say anything, just took another sip of his drink. That's when the woman did something that completely and totally surprised him. She leaned forward on the bar and said, quite clearly, "Ni jiao shen ma min zu." Her intonation was perfect. She must have been practicing, since she obviously wasn't Chinese. He considered how he should respond to her asking his name, and in the end decided that there was no point to lie. "Bao jiao Fu," he replied. "Your name is Fu?" she repeated in English. He immediately regretted telling her that, when she clapped her hands together in delight. "Finally! Now I know one thing about you." She pointed a finger at him. "Before long I'll know everything. I'm taking Mandarin classes in the mornings." She placed a hand on her chest. "My name's Violet." He wasn't sure how to respond. Surely she wasn't learning the language because of him? Perhaps she had some other reason, and it made sense for her to try to practice on him. He was a stationary target, and she could speak with him while working. In her eyes, it was probably a win-win. He wasn't sure how he liked this development. That's why he tried not to talk to humans more than he had to. They're always nosy little creatures. And now was not the time to let her know that he had a better grasp of English than just the names of cocktails. Spoke it perfectly, in fact, and seldom with much of an accent. Knocking back the rest of the Gibson, he laid another 20 on the bar. "Baiju," he said, feeling slightly nostalgic after speaking with her in Mandarin. He remembered centuries ago when the distilled alcohol first made its appearance in his homeland, and how the liquor had gotten stronger and stronger over the years. This was one of the alcohols that the place never used to stock, but now kept around for him. The bartender knew how he liked it too. She grabbed the bottle on one of the decorated white cups from under the bar and poured him a shot of the liquid. He admired the red and blue floral pattern of the ceramic. "How many?" she asked in Mandarin, and he was surprised all over again by her accent. "Pour two," he responded in the same language, albeit speaking slowly, and was pleased when she understood him. The liquid trickled into the second cup until it was nearly to the brim, and then she stowed the bottle away beneath the bar. He held up his cup in expectation, and it took a second for Violet to catch on before she tentatively held up hers in the air. He clinked his glass against hers. "Ganbai." "Cheers," she replied. He knocked back the whole drink in one go, which wasn't really more than a mouthful. The traditional serving set had small cups that fit into the palm of your hand like a sake set. Violet drank hers, coughing a little after swallowing. He supposed it was a bit of an acquired taste. "Xie," she told him, whisking the cups away to wash when he put his down on the counter. He looked into her bright eyes, and he could see they were filled with enthusiasm at the connection she had finally made with him in their conversation. He knew he had started something by responding to her, and he wasn't sure what it was, where it would lead. But then he remembered. It would go nowhere, just like him. He was headed nowhere, and he was going there sooner than he liked. Still, his response was wary, if polite, when he replied, "You're welcome." Fu's completely right in thinking that his conversation with Violet is going to be starting something, and is going to be a wild ride for both of them. Next week, I'll be tackling some contemporary romance, so get ready for Broken Hearts to Mend as I dive into a 3-book series. Tune in tomorrow to find out what they're all about.